Robert Harper sat in the corner booth of Miller's Diner, watching his 7-year-old son Thomas stare out the window at the passing cars. The afternoon sunlight filtered through the glass, catching the boy's light brown hair and casting shadows across his small, serious face. Thomas wore his favorite blue plaid shirt, the one he insisted on wearing 3 times a week. His hands rested on the red vinyl seat, fingers tracing invisible patterns. Robert had built an empire in real estate, buying and selling properties across 3 states. Money had never been a problem, but all the wealth in the world couldn't solve what mattered most. Thomas hadn't spoken a single word since his mother passed away 2 years ago. Not one word. The doctors called it selective mutism, brought on by grief. They said to be patient, to give him time. But how much time does a father wait before his heart breaks completely? The diner had become their Thursday ritual. Robert would finish his meetings early, pick Thomas up from school, and they'd come here. The same booth, the same chocolate milkshake for Thomas, the same hope that maybe today would be different. A young waitress approached their table. She couldn't have been more than 25, with kind eyes and her brown hair pulled back in a ponytail. She wore the standard blue uniform dress with a white apron, but there was something gentle in the way she moved, something peaceful. "Good afternoon," she said softly, her voice like a warm breeze. "My name is Sarah. I'll be taking care of you today." Robert nodded, about to order their usual, when Sarah knelt down beside the booth. She was at eye level with Thomas now, not hovering above him like most adults did. "Hi there," she said to the boy, pulling a small yellow note card from her apron pocket. She drew a simple smiley face on it with a pen. "I like to draw when I'm thinking. Do you like to draw?" Thomas looked at her, his green eyes wide and uncertain. He didn't nod or shake his head. He just looked. Sarah didn't push. She simply placed the yellow card on the table between them along with her pen. "If you want to draw something, you can. No pressure. Sometimes pictures say what words can't." Robert felt something catch in his throat. In 2 years, no one had approached his son quite like this. Most people either ignored Thomas completely or spoke to him too loudly, as if volume could break through his silence. "We'll have the usual," Robert said quietly. "Burger and coffee for me. Grilled cheese and chocolate milkshake for him." "Coming right up," Sarah said, standing gracefully. But before she left, she pointed to the yellow card. "That's yours to keep, Thomas. Draw anything you like." Over the next 30 minutes, something remarkable happened. Thomas picked up the pen. Slowly, carefully, he began to draw on the yellow card. A house, a tree, 2 stick figures, one tall and one small. When Sarah returned with their food, she noticed the drawing immediately. "That's beautiful," she said, genuine admiration in her voice. "Is that you and your dad?" Thomas looked at the drawing, then at his father, then back at Sarah, and then, so quietly that Robert almost missed it, his son nodded. Robert's chest tightened, a nod. It wasn't a word, but it was communication. It was connection. Sarah smiled and pulled out another yellow card. "May I draw something too?" Thomas nodded again, this time a little quicker. For weeks after that first Thursday, Sarah and Thomas had their quiet drawing sessions. She never forced conversation, never demanded words. She simply showed up, offered her presence, and created a space where Thomas felt safe. Sometimes she'd draw animals, sometimes flowers. Once she drew a boy with his arms spread wide like he was flying. "This is how I imagine you feel when you're happy," she'd said. Free. Robert watched his son transform. The tension in Thomas's small shoulders began to ease. His eyes, which had been so guarded, started to sparkle with anticipation every Thursday. One afternoon, Robert arrived early to the diner. He found Sarah in the kitchen doorway, leaning against the wall during her break, her eyes closed. She looked tired, deeply tired. Her uniform had a small stain on the apron. Her shoes were worn at the heels. "Long day?" Robert asked gently. Sarah opened her eyes and smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes this time. "Just life," she said. "My mom's been in and out of the hospital. Medical bills are piling up, but we manage. We always do." Robert nodded slowly. He understood struggle, though his came in a different form. "Thomas asks about you," he said. "Well, not in words, but he draws you. A girl with a ponytail holding yellow cards." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "He's special," she said. "Really special. You're doing a wonderful job with him." "I don't always feel that way," Robert admitted. But thank you, and thank you for seeing him. Really seeing him. The following Thursday, everything changed. Sarah brought their usual order to the table, along with a yellow card. But this time, Thomas looked up at her and opened his mouth. "Thank you," he whispered. 2 words, barely audible. But they hung in the air like church bells on a quiet morning. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Robert couldn't breathe. He couldn't move. "You're welcome, sweetheart," Sarah managed to say. "You're so very welcome." Thomas picked up his pen and drew a heart on the yellow card. Then he slid it across the table to Sarah. That evening, Robert made a phone call to his attorney. 2 weeks later, he called Sarah into his office at the diner, where he'd arranged a private meeting with the owner present. "Sarah," Robert began, his voice steady but full of emotion, "you gave my son something I couldn't buy with all my money. You gave him patience, understanding, a safe place to find his voice again." He paused. "I've paid off your mother's medical bills. All of them. And I've set up a fund for her ongoing care." Sarah stared at him, her mouth open. "Mr. Harper, I can't." "I didn't do this for—" "I know," Robert said gently. "That's exactly why I'm doing it. You didn't want anything. You just gave everything that mattered. Kindness, time, your heart." Sarah broke down crying and Robert let her. "Some tears need to fall. There's more," he added. "I'm funding your college education if you want it. Any school, any degree. And if you want to keep working here while you study, that's your choice. But you'll never have to worry about money for your mother's care again." Months passed. Thomas began speaking more regularly, working with a therapist, gaining confidence. He still loved his Thursday visits to Miller's Diner, still drew pictures on yellow cards with Sarah, who was now enrolled in nursing school. One afternoon, as Robert watched Sarah and Thomas draw together, both of them giggling over a silly cartoon cat, he realized something profound. Wealth had given him many things, but it took a young waitress making minimum wage to teach him the greatest lesson of all. The most valuable things in life can't be purchased. They can only be given freely from one heart to another. In showing kindness to a silent little boy, Sarah had healed more than just Thomas. She had reminded a broken father that goodness still existed in the world, that people still cared, that hope was always worth holding on to. And sometimes, when you least expect it, an ordinary Thursday afternoon in a small diner can change everything. Not through grand gestures or dramatic moments, but through the simple, powerful act of one person truly seeing another. That's where miracles live, in the quiet spaces, in the patient waiting, in the yellow cards covered with drawings and dreams, in the gentle reminder that we're never as alone as we think we are, and that sometimes the greatest gift we can give another person is simply our presence, our patience, and our unwavering belief that they are worth the wait.